My name is Tamika Dobbins. I am the Director of Victim Services for the Tennessee Department of Correction. I've been in corrections probably over 10 years now. I worked as a probation parole officer for several years before working in victim services. So I kind of have a background in both. I think the most important thing is for victims to understand. I know oftentimes they feel that they're kind of lost in the shuffle of the criminal justice system, and I can see why they would feel that way, because most of the time, all the attention is on the offenders, but it's important for them to understand that they do have a voice, their voice is important, and it's important that their voice is heard. A lot of times they do once they're sentenced, and if they get sentenced to serve time with the Tennessee Department of Correction, they will come straight to the Tennessee Department of Correction. It may be a little lag time before they actually transfer, because a lot of times they are held in jail if they never made bond, but there at some point should be an order for them to be transferred to the Tennessee Department of Correction. Classification is a process where they go to one institution that's solely for classification purposes, and so they'll go through it's sort of like an assessment. Several questions are asked. I know a couple of the questions include the type of crime, their behavior, programming needs, and things of that nature. So after that assessment is done, they basically get a score, and that score sets their level, whether they're minimum, maximum, or medium custody level. And then based off that, they are placed in an institution based on that assessment. That can take some time. It could take a couple months. At that point, the Department of Correction will be responsible for the housing, supervision, and tracking of the inmate. So once they come to us, we will house them. We have 14 prisons across the state. They'll go through a classification process, and then based off of that, they're placed in an institution, one of our institutions. It's important for victims to also understand, though, that the sentence that's handed down in court is often confusing because the offender's sentence gets reduced. We have a sentence management division that kind of computes their sentence, and the sentence is impacted by many factors, and it reduces their sentence over time. So a lot of times the sentence is reduced, but there is work being done throughout the state by victim advocates for truth in sentencing. That way, if a judge says this person is sentenced to 10 years, that person will serve 10 years. They won't serve 6.5 years. So there's work being done to make the sentencing a little bit more understandable. Even myself, as working in victim services, I get confused about the sentence. But again, because of all these credits and all these different things, a lot of times they get pretrial credits. So they earn credits up until the point they go to trial and get convicted. And that could be a year or two of credit. So then that comes off the sentence. So it is pretty complicated. They are notified if they are registered. So victims and interested parties do have to be registered with the Department of Correction, the Victim Services Division, to get registered. And they can contact us to do that. But they will be notified if they are moved to an institution with a lower security level, and that's by statute. So anytime they are moved, and depending on what facility they're moved to, if that facility has a lower security designation, they will be notified of that. We use letters, we mail letters to victims, but I'm so excited. We recently implemented VINE, which stands for Victim Information and Notification Every Day. And it's an electronic notification system that the county jails in Tennessee have been using for years. So now the Department of Correction is on board with this same system. And so they can also register with VINE and be registered electronically. They can choose to get a text, an email, or a phone call. They can keep track of them. Vinelink.com is the website. All you have to do is enter the offender's name or their ID number, and they can kind of check the status of the offender. The law permits inmates to earn good behavior credits as an incentive. They get credits for behavior and programming. So, in the prisons, they want to try to keep the chaos down and things of that nature. They want to keep the offenders busy and working. So, as an incentive, they can earn those credits each month if they are participating in programs and/or jobs, as well, as good behavior. If they're not getting into any trouble, they can earn those credits. They could lose the credits as well. So it just depends on how they're behaving. Two for one is reserved for what is considered lower sentences, but it is often alarming to victims when they learn of it. So if an offender is housed in a county jail in Tennessee, and oftentimes our TDOC felony inmates will be housed in a county jail. In the county jails, they do 2-for-1s, which means for every day they serve, they get credit for 2 days. So that literally cuts their time in half as well and reduces the sentence. Again, sentence credits, 2-for-1s, all of it is very, very confusing. And oftentimes when they learn of 2-for-1, they get very upset, and rightfully so. And a lot of times we can submit a request to have the offender moved to a TDOC institution. Now that's not always granted, it just depends, but the request can be made, and we can see if we can make that happen. And it has been done at times. We can reach out to our classification team to see if it's possible to get this offender moved to a different institution. And sometimes it has been granted and other times it hasn't. For crime victims, their life changed forever once a crime happens. And oftentimes, it's something they can't get over, especially if it's a loss of life case, if a family member or something like that was snatched away from them. But throughout the years and through time, they learn to kind of get through it and live with it. It's tough, but it takes a lot of work as well. And a lot of times, even when they receive notices, from our division or whatever, all that stuff brings back up the crime all over again. So oftentimes they're reliving it. If they read about it or see a news article about it or something to that effect, it just brings the crime up all over again. But throughout time, and healing and things of that nature, they do kind of learn to just kind of get through it day by day. Actually, I have. I was like a teenager though, and I was in the store with a neighbor. And we were in there shopping, and someone came in the store and robbed the store. And my neighbor, who I was with at the time, she was pregnant. And we were kind of in the back of the store, but we heard them when they came in. And so we rushed and ran to the back of the store, and she fell, on her belly at the time, because she was pregnant. And so it was really, really scary. Yeah, that was a frightening time. I'm here, to help and assist victims in any way that I can. A lot of times I may get calls from victims and they just want to vent, Sometimes I can relate just depending on what it is, and sometimes, I don't, but, I listen. And that's one of the key components when you work with victims. Listen, and listen, just listen with empathy, listen, to understand what it is that they're going through.